Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome once again to Satsang. So good really good to be here. This is this is my favorite day of the week. The thing I most love to do is uh, is sit here and talk about that which is the most important thing to be talked about in the world at any time, in any place. Because what could be more important than knowing who you are? I see all sorts of things on all sorts of memes and advertisements and comments throughout all of the social media about the good life and about evolving and growing and developing and you know being having being and doing everything you could ever dream of. All of that's well and good, but it's such a simple thing to consider that if you don't really know who you are, how can you possibly trust your desires, your ambitions, your aspirations? If I feel incomplete in some way, all of my desires and aspirations are of necessity going to be about trying to fill up that that absence of wholeness or completeness. It's inevitable. I mean, this is what we human beings do. We seek to complete ourselves, and in that completion, that the completion of that is what we would call happiness, peace, the end of the road. Oh, I finally arrived. I've attained. I am stable. I am set. I am okay now. And that sense of incompleteness is what drives humanity. It's what's driving everyone. It's why we want to grow and evolve. It's inevitable that this is what we're going to want. I mentioned the other day somebody made a comment about when I said the purpose of life was to be happy. And I saw a meme today by somebody who had said exactly, no, it's not to be happy, it's to evolve and grow. And I thought to myself, but evolve and grow into what? Misery? I think what happens is that people, when I use that word happiness, I'm speaking of a deep sense of contentment, a sense of being fully yourself, not something other than yourself, not some version of yourself, but your actual self. That's what I mean by happiness. It's just being yourself, being self-expressive as you actually are, unapologetically yourself. This doesn't diminish evolution and growth, a forever unfolding landscape, but what's actually unfolding in that landscape? Right? You're not becoming something else. Different aspects of your infinite nature are appearing. This particular manifestation of who you are has a time limit. It has an expiration date. It expires in a whole new, different version of you. You don't actually become something else, but a different part of you gets manifested, becomes concretized in the moment. So there's no actual contradiction between the timeless, changeless essence that you are and its infinite nature, and the constantly evolving, growing expression of that infinitude. Because what could express infinitude? No one thing could. To express your infinitude will take eternity. It will never run out. But happiness is simply no internal contradiction whatsoever. It's a sense of well-being that has no dependency on anything external to itself. And the only place that can be found is in knowing yourself as you are. If you mistake yourself for somebody else, it doesn't matter how much you evolve and grow. You'll be thinking of evolving and growing as the attainment of something, trying to get something, trying to hold on to something. But if you discover that which you actually are, your infinite nature, well, that striving goes away. Happiness is no longer dependent upon a condition, whatever that might be, right? An attainment, a relationship, wealth, money, anything external, status, achievement, goal realization. A sense of knowing who you are that is absolutely rock steady and the same, no matter what the circumstances are. That's true happiness. That's contentment. And to me, that's what this is. That's what this is all about. This is the whole point, right? And if you're not feeling that sense of contentment, the reason is because you're not being fully yourself. Because to be yourself is contentment. Because what else can you be? Where else can you find effortless being? Except being that which you are. This is the beauty of the existential inquiry. This is what Mooji loves to refer to as the isness. It's what is. Not what's becoming, but what is. And what is can never be what is not. And therefore, it had no beginning. You didn't create it. You don't have to maintain it. It's self-sustaining. Where else could there be utter stillness, utter peace and contentment except there? So that's why we're here, folks. That's why it is the most important thing in the entire human kingdom. That is why it is the answer to all the world's problems, because all the world's problems are caused by the seeking of happiness where it isn't. And the inevitable stupidity and barbarity and greed that arises out of that fundamental ignorance of thinking you're someone you're not. So who are you? You are the infinite one. And I know me just saying that to you, you are that infinite one. Whether you believe it or not, isn't enough to break down the walls of the mind. But it's the direction. It's the direction to look. And if you're looking in that direction, you're going to see it. Right? If you're looking over there, you're not going to see what's over here. So look here. And this here is here. I'm not asking you to look anywhere to anyone other than your actual self. But be willing, courageous enough, bold enough to question all the assumptions you hold about yourself, all the things that have made you feel safe, that you want to believe that aren't actually true, that don't stand up to scrutiny. Yeah, this is non-dual self-inquiry is not really for the faint of heart. It is not a nice spiritual practice that's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you good at feeling. And there's a big difference. So anyway, welcome once again. I'm going to start going through the queue here, as I am wont to every week, sipping on my mate. Roberto in Spain. Hello, Roberto. Hello, Hendrik. And, sorry. I pressed the button, it starts showing up. Robbie in Romania. Stormy, Sweden. Hi, Merck. Good to see you. Rosario in Madrid. Suzanne. Hey, G and all. How to raise children consciously. Well, the short answer is become conscious yourself, right? Because obviously, if you're not, all they're going to learn from you is your unconsciousness. So it has to start with you, right? becoming increasingly conscious. And here's the beautiful thing about awakening consciousness. You don't have to figure out what to do with it as it awakens. It comes, batteries included. It knows what to do, because awakening isn't just personal. The awakening is to the awakening to yourself that is beyond the personal self. It is the direct condensation, a direct arising out of the infinite field of unlimited intelligence, wisdom, discernment, creativity, gentleness, compassion. That's what is awakening. It's not personal. It's not you're awakening, and now what do I do with this awakening? The awakening brings its own wisdom and guidance with it. Right? So all you have to do is be willing in every moment to want to experience this moment as the awakened one. That's all you have to do. And recognize that because it is a matter of grace, because none of you here, including me, chose this path. It's not the path that people sign up for. Right? Oh yeah, I want to inquire who I am and scrutinize every single assumption I have, and go through a spiritual crucifixion to no thank you, I don't want that. I just want to meditate and be a vegan and play with crystals or something. Not to diminish any of that, but it doesn't show you the way to the self. That desire was kindled in you from the truth of you revealing itself to you. So it wasn't even your choice, which means that everything you in your life you had experienced had been bringing you to this. Now, when we understand conditioning and how it all happened and the misery it's caused us, as parents, of course, the last thing we want to do is inflict that on our children, right? But the very same beautiful process and divine hand that is bringing you to and through awakening is bringing them through it. And you have a role to play in that. You are part of the environment that truth has assembled around each one of them to give them the experience that is destined to awaken them. So you can't mess this up. And even the desire to free your children as much as you possibly can from anything other than what is absolutely necessary is also an expression of your own beauty. It is an expression of the fact that you're already awake. The unawakened person doesn't even ask that question. They don't know that question can be asked. They're just acting out the patterns and the beliefs and the assumptions that were programmed into them. So really rejoice in the fact that the awakening is happening for you. And because it's happening for you, it's happening for them. You can't help it. It just can't help it. However it may come out in your actions and your thoughts and your feelings. Most importantly, don't think of them as these helpless creatures who are going to be subject to horrible things because of conditioning. Don't hold those thoughts about them. It's not true. Right? The truth is, the real you was never conditioned. And that is the gap. That's what we're opening up. You keep seeing them as they are, the real them, and not the conditioned version of them. You're going to hold that space open, right? And that is the best and only gift you can give to them. And you notice it is in direct proportion that you're doing that for yourself. Right? It will be identical. Right? This is how we become conscious parents, raising increasingly conscious children, accepting them for who they are, being interested in who they're becoming, not who we want them to be, right? That's the killer. The killer is that is insisting that they be something other than what they actually are. Think of children as a seed that's been planted into a garden, but you don't know what the seed is. You don't know what plant it is. It could be a sequoia, it could be a redwood, it could be it could be a hibiscus. It could, you don't know what it is, right? And you won't know till it bears full fruition. Right? And so your job is to be constantly watching. Whoa, what does it need? Oh, this isn't a chicken, it's a duck. It needs to go to the water. Oh, I see. Okay. And so it's a constant discovery of who they are. And if you're engaged in that, they're going to feel that as love, as acceptance. They're going to feel that as, I'm really honored here. And that's the thing that negates the conditioning. That's what gives them authority. That's what gives them the capacity to love themselves, to set boundaries, to do all the things that we need to do in order to have a life that is free. So thank you for that question, Suzanne. I hope I answered it well for you. Karen, hi everyone. Hi GP. Is it possible for one not to perceive through memory? Yeah, you're doing it right now. We always perceive directly, right? You're not seeing a memory right now. You're seeing what's right here. Now, the moment it's past, the mind kicks in and says, "Oh, what did he say 5 minutes ago?" And right. But the perceiving itself is never a memory. Memory is thought. It's interpretive. It is not the experience. It's stuff that collects about the experience based on old assumptions and patterns of thinking and ideas and beliefs and all the things we talk. So suddenly the happening, which is always absolutely real in this moment, right, is obscured by our interpretation of it, which is not here in the moment. Okay? So what you're really asking is, how do I perceive this moment as it actually is? Recognize that you are, right? Because the memory can't attach itself to anything unless something real is here, right? Right? A belief has to be a belief about something, right? So it's always secondary. Reality or experience comes first, and then comes memory, association, anticipation, projection. That all comes later. Those are all secondary effects of the actual reality, which is you are perceiving reality right now. Right? The whole mission here is to cut through memory, cut through interpretation, cut through all of our associations. So this moment is experienced completely as it is, without any of the extra mental interference. But can you see that it is, you are experiencing reality right now, that it can't be any other way. You're not experiencing unreality. Even if the whole thing's a dream, there's a dreamer. There's a reality to this, right? That is unfolding, expressing itself in every single second. So just put all your attention right in this moment and the reality of you having an experience in this moment. You are, because obviously there could be no experience if you didn't exist first, right? and then secondarily, there's an experience being had by that which is. Those are undeniable facts. In fact, they are the only undeniable facts. Every other thing is quite deniable, which means it's not a fact. It's not the truth. It's not reality. Okay? So recognize it. Recognize, oh my God, I'm always experiencing reality, but I'm so used to then jumping into my mind as to actually, oh yeah, I love to use the example of walk through the park after winter, as spring has just come, right? And all of a sudden, some bush that yesterday was just turning green is now just exploded in color and flowers. And what happens? You go, and for a split second, boom, everything has stopped. It is, I call it the power of wow. You're right here. There it is. You're not even there. It is such a feeling of oneness that and awe that there's no mental action taking place whatsoever. It's just pure experience. The way a child looks at something, because there's no mental activity, right? Now, for us adults, we look at that, and then almost immediately, the mind will go, "Oh my God, isn't that want to describe it? It's beautiful. Oh, that wasn't there yesterday. My goodness, that's so great. It's so beautiful. I love seeing. I wonder what kind of flower that is. I wonder. No, I think I've seen that on sale at the nursery. Maybe it was at Whole Foods. They had this cut flower, right? At that point, you're not there anymore. The experience isn't there. Now you're in the mind, but all the while the mind is doing this, you're still right there, having the experience, looking at the natural bouquet of flowers. Right? This is what I'm referring to. We want to see through the mind's projection onto the moment and be actually 100% with the moment. That's why Eckhart Tolle referred to it as the power of now. Right? Nothing but now, just now. This is how you will recognize that perceiving never has anything to do with memory. It's always right here, but we've just gotten trained to immediately engage with the mind's narrative when it happens. The purpose of satsang and everything I teach is to break that association. So there isn't always this direct, so I experience something and the mind kicks in with its narration and I go along with the narration instead of the experience. But never doubt for a moment that the experience is happening. It's always happening. It has to be happening, right? Because if it wasn't, then there'd be nothing for the mind to narrate. So this is the process by which we free ourselves. We break down the walls of the mind and we free ourselves from our conceptual experience of existence into the actual, real, palpable nature of existence itself. How's that, Karen? Thank you for that question. Beautiful. Lola, hello, G. Is it possible to find out if I have already lived, and if yes, particulars about my past life? Is it possible to find it? Well, I can already tell you have, right? Period, right? Yeah, of course, you don't have to take my word for it. Really, the best thing you can say about what was there before you were born is, I don't know. I don't remember. And what's going to happen after you die? I don't know, right? So from the point of view of the limitations of the mind, it can't go beyond the experience that it had, right? And therefore, it can't say definitively, objectively, yes, I'm going to exist after I die, or I won't. Neither one of those could actually be said, even though from the perspective of our normal way of discursive reasoning, right? Same thing for before you were born, right? You don't know. I don't remember, right? So I can either assume that I was or assume that I wasn't, right? I've had enough personal experience with working with people and the kind of traumatic material that might come up that I have enough personal anecdotal evidence for me to go, yes, right? And it would make perfect sense. If you add into that scriptural references to it, the Buddhist references, Hindu references to it, even Christian mystic references to it, you see that there's a lot of authority for assuming that there is, right? Now, the next question. Who is Brian Weiss? Yeah, Dr. Brian Weiss, who's making his whole living about past life regressions, teach other people how to do it and that sort of thing. And he does it in a therapeutic setting. Now, when you're having an experience like that, it is a very subjective experience, right? And a lot of what may come up as genuine memories of past lives, but because you're not in that life anymore, the context of it is removed. the interpretation of it's going to be in this life. And that can be therapeutic, right? If you find some kind of traumatic energy that's lingered from a past life in this one, you can dissolve that traumatic energy just the way you would a trauma that happened in this life. So there's a continuity there that contributes to energetic healing. Right? Now, is it necessary to know the particulars of a past life? The answer is no, it is not. And in fact, to simply try to get the particulars is counterproductive. It doesn't actually help in the assumption. That is the mind trying to control the act of healing. It is trying to control the energy healing, where the healing needs to take place is on a level way below where the mind can go. It is a level that is prior to mind, right? As is all experience. Mind is a secondary thing. It comes later. Cognitive or discursive reasoning and the like, it comes much later. It's interpretive. It's not direct. Right? So you don't need to know those past anything about your past life. You don't. Remember that when you were living that past life, you had past lives. And while you were living that, you were so convinced that this is who you were. I am this. And you thought that you're going to be that after you die. You were that before you were born. What I ask is this. If in every single life I had, it felt just like this one, right? I believed this to be me. You know, I'm a man. I'm this age. I was born here. I talk like this. I was so convinced that that was me, and it's not me anymore. And I've had literally thousands of those. What is it that went from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime? The lifetimes themselves aren't nearly as important as that which is experiencing them, is it? And isn't that what you really want to get to? Who you really are? That which has had all of those experiences and mistakenly identified with all those experiences? Now, in my work with inner reconciliation, the way I teach people to process this for themselves and for others is you simply let the energy lead you, right? If you're listening to the energy in the body, you're listening to the distress, you're listening to whatever the particular feeling is, and you stay with it long enough, it may reveal its whole story to me. And I've had it. I've had people go into some really strange states of mind right in front of me, where they were literally reliving events, traumatic events from past lives. And it was clear that that's what was happening. But I didn't go looking for those. I simply gave the energy permission to tell me whatever it needed to tell me in whatever way it needed to do that. And it did. The end result, healing, right? I just created an environment, and I trust the energy to do what it needs to do to clear away the obstacles that are in the way of it fully expressing itself. And I continue to ask the bigger question, who are you? Right? Who is it that had those experiences? If you know that, you are free forever from karma. You are free from all of the traumas, because the real you that had the experience was never in the experience any more than you're in the movie you're watching. It was never traumatized. It never died. It was never born. It has had the experience of multiple lives, but it itself was never born. As Muji likes to say, you only live once, but that's forever. Does that answer it for you, Lola? And I guess this is a good time for me to make a plug for my upcoming training, because this is what I teach, what I was just describing you, how to create an inner environment where whatever needs to come up comes up, right? You're not directing it, you're not telling it, you're not going after it. Because the moment you start going after something, you could see there's already a supposition. There's a presumption, right? That if I get to this, then something is going to happen. You are asserting yourself onto this incredibly intelligent system. What's it going to do? It's going to have to deal with you, right? Right? It's not going to cooperate with you because you're trying to force it into something. Right? And that's literally what we do. That's what all self-help is, right? Is trying to force the system into a different position. Right? Because somehow we've gotten this idea that we know better. Oh, I know what it needs to do. I'm just going to get to this past life. And so you try to make it get to the past life. And if you do, you very likely will completely misinterpret it, and it won't have any remedial effect. But if instead you create an environment that is so open and free that it can bring anything to the surface, you've just opened the door wide. Right? And what does that mean? You made it safe enough for whatever it is to come to the surface. You have established unconditional love. You've given yourself the very thing that you didn't have, that created all of the conditioning and traumas in the first place. That absence of a safe place where you could just be yourself is what created all the problems. So my solution is create the environment that fully allows you to be yourself. And what will happen? It will automatically just start disposing of all of the defenses and conditioned patterns that it doesn't need anymore, because it doesn't need to protect itself anymore. You have become safe. This is inner reconciliation in a nutshell. And that is what I'm going to be teaching people to do. I already have courses on it, but this is an intensive where I will be teaching you to a level where you'll feel confident, really confident doing it for yourself and for others if you so desire. So, how's that? Good. Good. Thank you, Lola. Hopefully that answers it for you. And I will now turn this off for now. Martin, hello. My fiance is worried about me being on the spiritual path. She thinks when I'm enlightened someday, eventually, I would stop loving her. Oh, that is so beautiful. That is just so sweet. It touches me. He continues, I know spiritual teachers like Eckhart Tolle, Rupert Spira, Adyashanti who are married. Yeah. So is it possible for an enlightened being still to have romantic feelings for another person? Oh my God, yes. Still be in love? More so. More so. Because there's genuine intimacy. The potential for genuine intimacy is there. The potential for celebrating human life is there. None in the overhead, right? See, the whole making a taboo of sexuality and those relationships emerges out of the understanding that it's a place for us to easily get stuck, right? We can begin to think that my life is about having this perfect relationship. And we can get really caught up in that whole struggle. It's all mixed up with our culture and the legalities of marriage, and the property rights that went along with marriage for so many years, and romantic love. If you're suddenly free and you can see someone like you've never seen them before, and you just in total awe of their uniqueness, their beauty. I find women more beautiful, more amazing, right? It's like I'm like a dog going, huh? Because I discover the feminine aspect of the Godhead through the presence of actual, human beings, human women. So it's not like that, right? There's the awakening, the effect that awakening and enlightenment has on one's life is a sweetening. It is a deepening. Right? It is It opens a door to celebration, to appreciation of all of the value of human life, simultaneously removing all of the attachment and the clinging and the clutching of it, because you don't need anything to get anything from it. You have everything to give to it. But then you see this beautiful relationship, this beautiful flow, because what you are really discovering in yourself is made manifest in the world around you. So it's not two. The end result is a deepening of love without the attachment. That is absolute bliss, love, wondrousness, ecstasy, and no suffering. You are free to love. You are free to experience pleasure and joy without the danger of it becoming, of getting absorbed into it. It is a liberation of human life, right? You are first liberated from the mind and its concepts. And so you are liberated from merely human life. But that human life then gets absorbed into the divinity until there's no difference. This is God. This is the divinity. That woman is the goddess. Not just a nice idea, not a metaphor. That's what she actually is. And you the God. And this is the just astounding beauty of it. So bless her heart. I understand. But what happens if she gets enlightened first? Is she going to dump you? I would. Because you don't know, right? You're on the path, you thought you're going to get it, but you have no idea. One day, completely unexpected, boom, you're living with a Buddha. Now what do you do? Oh, like it is to be celebrated, totally celebrated. I love silent retreats. But I also think that on retreats, that there should be some periods of silence and introspection, and other periods, especially around meals, where people should be celebrating each other. It should be lively and engaging, and we should, the sense of an other. There isn't any real other. There's only the self. But that self manifests itself in many. I mean, what would love be if it would be purely theoretical if there were not two to love? It didn't manifest itself in some form. And in order to manifest, there has to be form. There has to be many. I mean, what would music be without a song? It is that utter beauty manifesting itself. But if we see that what is manifesting is not the essence of it, is not the substance of it, we realize that the form can constantly evolve, constantly change, and we never lose the essence of it. It will always be a different aspect of that same indescribable, infinite essence. This sanctifies human life. This turns water to wine. Right? This is not a diminishment, as many spiritual traditions have made it so. So, I've taken no vow of celibacy. I'm quite open to the whole idea. Right? When it happens, it happens. Yeah, I don't feel any need for it, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to be miserable. Nothing like that at all. Right? It's just, however awakening unfolds in my life and in yours, that's how it's unfolding. And you're already awake. It's already happening. You're already awake. Do you love her? Has it changed? Has it gotten more so? When there's less expectations about what somebody should be or shouldn't be, so there's more compassion, there's less judgment, There's less opportunity for conflict. It's like, how could it not be anything but better? And the more comfortable you have in your own skin, the freer you are, the less inhibited you are about love making, about just all the the fun stuff, kissing in public. I mean, there's absolutely, the limits get taken off. I think I've made that clear enough. So put her concerns to rest. Annette, hello Annette, my rock star. What are the different phases of dying, and what does it mean to go through all of them? I know nowadays we're in hospital and connected to a machine, you cannot die properly. What are the consequences of that? That was amazing. That's amazing. What a question. I've thought about that. What happens when somebody's just laying there in a machine? Well, it's kind of like being in deep sleep, right? Timeless, right? Not suffering, no experiencing whatsoever, just being. That's what I suspect. I've not been in a coma or tied to a machine like that. And yeah, it's no way to die. It's absolutely no way to die. Different phases of dying. Yeah. We have to understand that dying it is not a moment, right? It is a birth and death are a cycle that are going on constantly, billions of times a second. Right? Cells are dying and being reborn. Some thoughts are being abandoned. New thoughts are being constantly coming up. New feelings, new sensations are flowing through us. The old ones are gone, right? The various phases of our lives. The adolescence dies to puberty, which then dies to the teenager, which dies to the young adult, which dies to the adult, which dies to the old guy, right? It is not a thing. It is not a moment, right? It is the nature of life itself. Birth and death is life. Right? This is the cycle. This is Shiva's wheel. Salvation, redemption, awakening is when you recognize that you are not that you are the timeless, changeless, deathless entity that is aware of Shiva's wheel. Right? Because something is aware of Shiva's wheel. And that something that's aware of it isn't changing. It's watching the change. Right? It itself isn't moving. It's watching all the motion. Now, this is our experience. Right? This is the experience you're having right now. The image on the screen, me talking, the words are flowing by, but aren't you absolutely consistent? Are they not flowing by you? So we could think of the words as being born and dying. The phrase is being born and dying, right? The image on the screen as my hand moves across is born and dying. We could put it in those terms. But you who are watching it, are you being born and are you dying? This is the deathless, right? So they're all different phases of death, right? Like certain phases in the body, like the stomach wall of your stomach replenishes itself every 24 hours. That's how fast these cells are turning over. Seconds, milliseconds, this stuff is turning over. And this body is doing this constantly, literally millions and millions of times per second. This death-life dance is happening. Shiva's wheel is moving, right? It happens at other layers too. The maturity of a particular organ, or a fingernail which reaches maturity, or a hair takes a longer time to reach maturity, and it falls out and it's replaced by something else. The same thing is true of our phases of life. Of the embryo, then the fetus, then the newborn, the infant, and so on. You can see this at that level. You can see it on on more macro levels, as somebody is going through various phases of their life. We call this is old age, this is middle age, this right. Inside of those are other little loops. It's kind of this infinite. There's a word for it. It's just one thing inside of another, like fractals, right? This fractal gives rise to this fractal, which gives rise to this fractal. This is a very real model of the way everything works. So we think of death as something ending, right? But see if you can find the point at which something actually ends, right? Even if I was to take this cup that I'm sipping on, it's going to get cold. I got to keep it up. And I melted it down. It would all be here still, every last bit of it, except the cup. Now, did the cup die? I've taken all of the elements of it, which are still here. I've melted it down. Or a glass, and you break it and you crunch it back into right back into the silica out of which it's made. The glass is gone. Did the glass die? Or was it just a momentary form and wasn't really born at all? If we really understand death, we see that death doesn't really exist. It never really happens. Now, from the experience of everyday life, right, it's important to understand it at that level, so that when you look at everyday life, you see that that's the theme that's actually going on. And yes, it's of certain circumstances, somebody's the body continuing to pump itself along, right? It appears as though it's continuing to going, and sometimes people come back into it later, and sometimes I think they just leave. It's gone. We have a bunch of machines going, and it's nothing but a machine, but there isn't anybody there. They're long gone. They're wherever they're going to be next. Just maintaining, just us, hooking up machines, maintaining the body doesn't force them to be here. Doesn't force them to hang on to it. Right? If it is their own choice to hang on to it or not, and that's kind of a strange way, because it doesn't seem like you're making choices in there. But these are choices, are like energetic assumptions. They're at a different level. Maybe something you don't want to let go of quite yet, or whatever. But whatever it is, no one is actually being held there. That doesn't happen ever. It's always a matter of your own of participation in it on some very, very, very subtle level. So to go through all the deaths, as your question is to just live for a second, because they're all happening right now. Death is not a moment in time. It's not a particular event. It is a theme playing itself out over and over again. This is the yin yang, birth, death, and so it is always going, right? What's important is to recognize that which is witnessing the constant flow of birth and death itself is neither. Was never born, cannot die. And that's you. That is consciousness. That is the reality. That's you. Hopefully that helps, Annette. UTC Live. I was looking for live call at 2 Eastern. Hopefully we'll show up at 3. I'm unaware of no live call at 2 o'clock. Sometimes I have messages going out that from my email system, but I wasn't planning on anyone today. I never do anything in the morning before satsang. So I'm sorry if there's some confusion there, Anne. Milo, AG, how do you know it's the right one, right partner? How do you find him or her? Trial and error. Oops. First off, yeah, there's no hard and fast rules for these things. I know people try to teach them. You know, put her or him on your vision board and see what happens. But you always leave something out, right? You go, oh God, I should have remembered. I don't want this quality. I want that quality. So that way doesn't work. I think the way to come to that sense of the right one, right? And I think what you mean by the right one is somebody that you're going to be compatible with, turned on by, can really love and grow with for the long term, which is possible, but not necessary, right? Let's be clear about that. And oftentimes we need to have a lot of different experiences in our lives before something like that can show up. It's kind of what is the most right thing in this moment? Will it be the right thing in the next moment? It may not. Now, if there's someone that there's just a strong compatibility to, it's effortless, it's easy, right? There's a natural drawing towards one another. It's not forced. You don't have to make anything happen. Over time, you feel more and more comfortable just being you, and you're comfortable with them just being them, right? And over time, you're aware of people are changing, and you're okay with people changing. You're not holding on to, oh, she was like this, you've changed. None of that. Yes, of course, that's always going to be the case. And if something's going to be sustained over the long haul, something deeper than just the immediate characteristics or the immediate manifestation has to be at play. I think one of the most significant qualities is our own desire for the ultimate freedom, right? Which is to know myself as I actually am. That is the most important desire. And if that is cherished as the most important desire, whatever comes into your life will be serving that end. And you'll be serving that end in their life. That's the space in which you have the freedom to create more freedom. Because now there's compassion. All the stuff that comes up, the inevitable childhood stuff is going to come up. And it is inevitable, right? In every relationship, she's always going to be part mommy and he's always going to be part daddy. That surrogate stuff is going to going on. If you're both conscious of it, it's the most wonderful place in which to become free of the old stuff, the old compensating for the parenting and love that you never got. Which of course then deepens it between the two of you, and it becomes this secret, sacred space, this real temple, right, of love in which everything can be enjoyed. So, how do you know? It's the wrong question. Don't try to know. Notice even in the asking of the question, we're trying to make it safe. It's not safe. Risking intimacy, letting yourself be seen, knowing perfectly well you could be rejected out of hand, is the most courageous thing for you to do, and it's the only thing you can do. And obviously, I'm not an advocate of just lay it all on the table on the first date. I mean, over time, you learn to trust. You throw some things out there. You see what kind of response you get. The trust deepens, and it opens up, because that's what we're seeking. In a relationship, in a romantic relationship, what we are really seeking is reunion with ourselves. It is a hint of the bliss of awakening to the fullness of your being. And in that awakening, the other person doesn't disappear, but they do merge. You are two and one at the same time. And you see that who they actually are is you. So, how do you know it's the right one? Right? Know yourself. Be yourself. Trust yourself to risk being seen. and see what the response is. Right? Slowly, gradually, don't just throw yourself out there. Don't be foolhardy. But if somebody appears to be trustworthy, test the trustworthiness. And are you trustworthy? Can they trust themselves to you? Right? And learn to see past our illusions and our delusions, knowing full well that until we reach a particular state of spiritual maturity, we will be seeking in our relationships a compensation for what we didn't get as children. And if that remains unconscious, it will create relationships that don't work, that are horrible, or abusive, right? Or unsatisfying. But if you are conscious of it, well, then that's the environment in which they get healed, in which their compensations aren't necessary anymore, because you've got the environment of unconditional love that you didn't have, and the absence of it created the need for a compensating. But what we're really seeking when we're seeking that relationship with the true parent is we're seeking ourselves. We're seeking the internal permission to recognize my own infinite value, and to love me, and to realize my worthiness as the self, because you are the self and so are they. And that is what all relationships are. That's what everything in human life is for, to point the way to that. And along the way, the experience of that, just the bliss of communion. It's sweet. Thank you, Milo. I hope that helps. Yeah. By the way, it's not match.com. That's not how you do it. Hello, Master, says Juliana. Hello, Juliana. I've been attracted to the wrong people most of my life. How can I recognize people who are good for me and who have a big heart? Thank you. Boy, do I hear this a lot from women. Maybe I should do a women's class. When we're attracted to the wrong people, that is, when you say wrong people, what you mean is it's not satisfying. You end up getting disappointed. You give too much, you get too little, right? And it's just unsatisfying. You don't feel seen and loved for who you are, right? Being forced into a shape that's not natural to you. Now, the reason this happens is because as a child, that's what happened. You were forced into a shape that was unnatural to you in order to survive in the environment you were in. This is the nature of conditioning. Please take my inner reconciliation courses, because I go so much in depth as to how this whole thing works. You'll never be confused about it again, right? And so what happens is that the nervous system, because it becomes adept at protecting you within this environment, right? And it gets different patterns of behavior and thought patterns and sense of identity that succeeds in surviving, not thriving, but surviving in that environment. It wants to maintain that environment, even though it sucks, because it's familiar. And by familiar, I mean it knows how to work in this environment. It knows how to keep you safe as long as you're here. So it will resist going to someplace even better, because it doesn't know if it can keep you safe there. So it keeps you shut down. It keeps you invisible. And so we will tend to attract the wrong people into our life. Why? Because we know how to keep hidden from them, like we learned how to keep hidden from our parents. We can recreate that same environment. Now, a sign of spiritual maturity, a sign of awakening, is when you recognize that you're doing it. Okay, I look back now, my last 5 relationships, my God, they were all the same. I kept doing the same thing. So just look at it. Okay, what was it, right? The initial attraction. Look at it. Look at it closely. Put it under the microscope. What was drawn? What was I feeling there? What was I anticipating? And let yourself really feel into that, so that you can get to know the trigger that is saying, this is a familiar territory. I can remain the same person I am if I go here. And then I will avoid intimacy, because that's really what I'm trying to avoid. Right? And then I'll be able to waste some more time here, and then can be discouraged after it's done, and I can wonder why I did it again. Right? This is all part of the thing. Right? So let me bring you back to you. Right? Who are you? Right? For a moment, let's not focus so much on fixing the environment here that will allow you to have a truly intimate relationship. And let's start by having a truly intimate relationship with yourself. If we all recognize that this happened to all of us, we became conditioned into being way less than we really are. And that includes all of our desires, our expectations, our relationships, our friends, our career, the clothing we choose. All of it is determined by this self-image, this that we're holding of ourselves. So, where's the best place to focus our attention then? It would have to be there. Now, what I do in inner reconciliation is that I focus the attention on the inner environment that gave rise to that sense of identity, needing to interact to an environment that was hostile to itself, and therefore wants to create this environment over and over again. So what do? We start by making you safe for you. Right? So if I'm beating myself up for having the wrong relationships, I'm not safe to me. Right? You're just yet another judge, another critic. But if I'm like, wow, look at that, I keep doing the same thing over and over again. Okay. I totally accept that I do this. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it sucks. I'd rather not do it, but I am doing it. And I'm just not gonna beat myself up for doing it. How's that? Wow. Okay. Yeah. I've been a real bozo. We're all bozos on this bus. How about it? We're all just kind of stumbling along in the dark. Okay. I totally accept that that's what I'm doing. Now notice how that feels. Instead of how do I get out of this? It's just like, damn, look, I did. Okay. All right. I'd like to get out of this, but here I am. Can you feel that there's a certain amount of self-acceptance in there? And the moment that self-acceptance happens, what happens? The internal environment shifts from that of conflict to one of safety. The one of, it's okay. Yeah, I'm a fuck up. Okay. I admit it. Put it on the front cover of the New York Times. Front page headlines. GP's a fuck up. All right, there it is. It's out in everybody to see. God damn, what a relief. I don't have to hide anymore. It's old news. Now, feel the relief of that, right? So, this is how you open up your own big heart for you. And what's inevitably going to happen if you open up a big heart to you? Suddenly, big hearts open to you are going to show up. It's inevitable, right? You won't have to worry about it. You'll smell the rat a mile away. You will. There'll be a natural intelligence because the nervous system won't be seeking that out anymore. It won't need that. It won't need that as a protective mechanism because you've created a completely different inner environment, a completely different inner landscape. This is why I call it inner reconciliation. You are reconciling with yourself. You are becoming the perfect parent, the perfect god or goddess. You are developing real unconditional love. That is the door to wisdom. That will make everything crystal clear, right? And that's where it starts. That's why I talk about inner reconciliation. That's why I teach it. That's why I'm hawking it all the time. It's pretty much all that's on offer. Wonderful. Wonderful. Does that help, Juliana? Beautiful. Oh, I so want to see human relationships so redeemed from the disaster that they've become. Robbie, in Romania, asking for a bit of help. I've got a passive attitude on life, work, goals, responsibilities, relationships that makes me wait for circumstances to occur in order to move fully and willingly in a direction. Sorry, I had to finish that. Okay, first off, stop labeling yourself. I've got a passive attitude on life. That's after the fact. You're having a particular experience, a particular confluence of events in this life, right? That you're unsure, right, of your work goals and responsibility, relationships, all that. It's kind of up in the air, right? Good. This is supposed to happen. This means you're growing, you're evolving, you're developing as a human being. You're not static. You're not stuck somewhere, right? So don't label it as a passive attitude on life. Right? What it means is that nothing has grabbed you enough now to focus the incredible energy that is you and is available to you once that focus occurs. But you can't force it. You can't make it happen, right? See, I'm waiting for the circumstances. No, you're not. You're waiting for the internal direction, and there's a big difference. If you're waiting for the circumstance, you're waiting for something to trigger a reaction, right? And in fact, something could come up and something very genuine inside goes, yeah, that's it. I mean, I felt that way in music, right? I loved music as a kid. I was really drawn to it after I saw the Beatles. I wanted to be a rock and roll star. But when I heard B.B. King for the first time, a blues legend, and I heard the blues and I heard it for the first time, something inside me went, yes. From that moment, I became a musician. Prior to that, I was ambitious. It gave me focus, that it was more than just, playing my drums in school. But in that moment, something else happened altogether. And it moved my life for decades, right? I still do it, right? I still make me the beginning of every video you hear is an excerpt from music that I've written, right? So it can connect that way, but you're not really waiting for the circumstances. You're waiting for you, because that unfoldment is the real you emerging in that moment, taking that form and self-expression. Okay? Now, the real you is beyond all of that. It's infinite. It has no form, right? And so in order to be experienced, even by itself, it must take form. It must manifest in some way. And that manifestation is just kind of this energy that congeals everything together: our lives, our interests, our loves, what engages us, our attention, all of it. So give yourself permission to be in this place of not knowing. The last thing you want to do is to pick up something that's not really authentic to you, because you feel as if, my God, I've got a passive attitude. I got to do something. No, you don't, right? No, you don't. Get a job at, as a barista, making espresso or something. There's nothing says you have to do this, right? And let it develop naturally. It will. It can't help it, right? For me now, it's this, right? This is it. This completely absorbs me. This is, I love doing it. I can't help it, right? I do it in my sleep. You could wake me up in the middle of the night, with no sleep, and turn this on and say it's time for satsang, and I'm in, right? So let yourself discover it, because it's a self-discovery. It's not something extra added on from the outside that you then okay, now I've got a reason for living. You are your reason for living. And if you give yourself permission to let that unfold in the most unique way, a way that's totally unique to you, you'll find that what you discover is very satisfying, very real, and will completely absorb you. And that's the best way to do it. That thing that says I got a passive attitude and I should be doing this, is something that's got to motivate me. That's coming from a culture that does not acknowledge or even want to have you knowing who you are and living your life in your most authentic way. Our culture does not want that. It wants conformity. It wants you into school to learn a skill that can be sold in the marketplace, then they're determining what's valuable. They do not want you. They want to turn you into something that does what they want, right? I want you. I want you as you. Imagine a world where all of us were showing up as ourselves and not conforming to some kind of arbitrary set of rules. Imagine what that would be like. There would be no problems. We'd solve every problem the moment it arises. The word problem wouldn't even exist in our vocabulary anymore, because we'd find the absolute perfection that all of us together are the absolute perfect balance and perfect configuration. And the new ones being born and those of us moving on, that it maintains a perfect equilibrium, because everything is doing its part. Like every cell in your body is doing its part, and that's all it has to do, is its part. And this incredible thing happens. Think of the family human as being each doing its thing. But there's this other stuff over there. Oh no! It's talking to the cells in the stomach. You need to be more like the lungs. Go get your degree in lungness or something, lungology. This is the way our world works. Right? It's not an acknowledgement of you. So take your time. There's no rush. You don't have a passive attitude. Nothing's hooked. Nothing's clicked yet. That's all. Find you, right? Find you, and you will find the treasure. You will find that energy of life. This is what is talked about in the myths of the hero's journey. That's what they're looking for. That special place of power. It's the self. It's you, right? And you'll recognize it by its authenticity, and it'll just take over your life. You won't have to do anything. You'll be a spectator. It'll be like, oh, this is great. It just happens, right? It just happens. Thank you, Ravi. Liza, hello. Hello, Ava from Poland. Great to be here again. Great to have you. Ursula, Madeira Island. Fiona, hello, Fiona. Hi, all from Greece. I have to do something this week which triggers anxiety. I practice allowing and remember it is just thoughts. It's not easy. Thank you for your words, GP. They always help. Yeah, allowing is a practice, right? And it's an essential practice. And it does get easier once you see the impact that it has, right? Because it's going to allow you to experience that your anticipation of what's going to happen and what actually happens are completely different things. And you will then, through your direct experience, lose that sense of anxiety. There'll be more and more of an expectation of good, an expectation of harmony. It doesn't mean the difficult things won't be difficult. There's always going to be the difficult conversations, the tough choices that have to be made. But we allow that. We allow the full emotional experience of that, because yeah, they're still going to happen. And when they do, it's not pleasant. We'd rather they not happen, but you're allowing yourself to be fully present with the experience, which means you're fully present, which means the best possible solution to whatever it is going to happen, right? It may be not the ideal that you'd like to have happen, but the best will happen, right? So it is a practice, and I'm really proud of you, right? That having to do something that triggers you, and yet you're willing to go to the place of allowing, rather than trying to figure out how to get out of it, or postpone it, or what you're going to say, or how are we going to do this, or to try to like overthink it, but instead to just be with those feelings. That's way more important than the event. Your capacity to be with those feelings is the open door for inner peace, right? You won't be fighting, because when you stop fighting your feelings, you are alleviating all your childhood traumas. Right? And you are merging into total self-acceptance and unconditional love. Beautiful, beautiful, and beautiful. Thank you, Fiona. Francis King talks on spirituality and life. Hey there, Francis. Greetings, G, and all here from Nashville. Oh, good to see you. Good to see you. There's Bob in Serbia. How are you doing, Bob? I have gotten your email. I think I got the last email from you, and I think I owe you a response. Jay, Hariom G, and everyone, I was contemplating the question of how one could show less interest in thoughts, and I'm aware of thoughts arising, feelings associated with it, sometimes following a certain... Where are you? Oh. Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. What? I lost something here. Is that all there was to it? I think I lost the rest of it. Sometimes following a certain... That's all it says, and I can't find anything after that. Oh, there it is. Thought. There it is. Sorry. Okay, let me go back for a second. I'm aware of thoughts arising, feelings associated with it, sometimes following a certain thought, and afterwards realizing I drifted off, LOL, I realized, okay, what am I doing? These happened, and go, let's push the attention back to me who's witnessing all of this. That's it. Beautiful. But then a thought arises, is this effortless? But isn't that just a thought? Right? And look, the mind is quite capable of twisting the non-dual language to keep you engaged. Oh, this is supposed to be effortless. It's effortless when it's effortless. If the effort is being directed wisely, of course there's going to be some effort, right? When you first realize your mind is constantly being distracted, drawing into things, narratives, conversations, thought patterns that you don't really want, the very fact that you realize that is moving the effort, right? So yes, there is a certain amount of effort, but that effort's being informed by something, right? It's this idea, it's effort. It is effortless. Who you are is effortless. The truth of you is effortless, right? What is, right? It doesn't have to try to be what it is, right? It just is. So this is your true nature, right? There's a spiritual practice or a spiritual path that we walk, right? Which is the full realization of your effortless being. And for a while, it may seem as though it requires effort to do that. But you'll eventually find that even that which seemed to be needing your effort, your participation, was itself happening all by itself. Notice, it happened. You saw you were distracted, and immediately you saw the intention to bring your attention back to the one witnessing it, and the energy to do that, and the conviction that it needed to do that, and then the actual happening of it happening, were you not simply watching that happen too? Were you actually the one doing it? Or did it happen automatically simply because the insight happened that said, mind is over here. No good, no good. Mind need be over here. And attention went over here. Right? Didn't it just happen automatically? Right? Then the mind says, well, that took some effort, didn't it? Did it? Right? The moment that seeing took place, could you have stopped it? Oh no, I'm going to put my attention on these horrible thoughts. I really want to keep it here. Would you have done that? Right? Did you really have any input at that moment? I mean, when you were distracted, even the very fact that you noticed that you were distracted, did you create that? Was it your effort that made you realize that? Or was it a sudden inspiration? It was all effortless for you. You just didn't realize. The mind keeps calling it effort. It's never effort for anyone, really. But I don't always put it in those terms because it can seem it could seem a little bit too obscure, right? But it is. There isn't actually any effort. It is happening all by itself. It always has and it always will. But at a certain level of development, I'll say, yeah, it takes a little effort. Oh, put your attention over here. Even when I teach meditation, especially in the beginning, so bring your attention, just put it on your breathing. Right? Great. Yeah. Now that appears to be requiring effort, but there's a payoff there, right? Because suddenly things begin to calm down. It feels better. But what we're doing is simply bringing direction. The only reason they'd even be willing to do that is there's already been an opening that is having them listen to me guide them in the first place. So you could see none of this is really personal doing. It may seem to be personal, but it's impersonal. The impersonal always acts effortlessly. The personal always believes in effort, but in fact, it never does anything ever. So how's that, Jay? Does that do it? Andy BB, hi folks, lots of love to you all from Malta. Malta, another one from Malta. Got 3 people in Malta. 2 of mine have taken my training classes. They're going to transform Malta, that's for sure. Let's see. Faith, hi, my sheik and my spiritual tribe. I have people saying that monogamous relationship is a type of attachment. What do you think about it? With all my ex, I have never lived infidelity, yet the idea of open relationship or polygamy makes me nervous. Even watching that in movies, I can feel that on my body. What would that mean for me? Human beings, like many other critters, mate for life. We do, right? And if you look at it from the point of view of evolution, it's the best thing to do, especially because human children require so much attention and so much time. We have so few of them, so we have to invest so much in them that, it's not a litter where you just, have the puppies and off you go. And 6 weeks later, they're on their own and everything's fine. Humans aren't like that. So if you look at it evolution from the point of evolutionarily, then it's very natural for relationships to be monogamous. It becomes different when it becomes more emotional, more romantic and the like. But I don't think there's a real cut and dry answer one way or the other. I don't think you can reach the depth of a relationship with multiple people simultaneously. I see no evidence of it, right? If somebody shows me evidence of that, I will consider another point of view, but I've never seen that. Is monogamy an attachment? It can be. Anything can be. You could turn anything into an attachment, right? It depends on what is your intention and the whole motivation and what you're doing with the relationship. What are you making it, right? Um, traditionally relationships were just determined by the culture. That's what you did. You didn't have the freedom to do with it what would be best serving you and your own growth and spirituality and the like. You didn't have that choice, right? But now we do. And so, yeah, if it feels uncomfortable for you to have an open relationship, well, by all means, don't do it. Right? And if it's much more comfortable to be in a monogamous relationship, be aware that it can become an attachment. It can become possessive. It can be, you can start taking each other for granted. Nothing removes the responsibility of of being an energetic presence in the relationship, to make sure that the relationship has a life, right? Because it has no life of its own. It is completely determined on the quality of the engagement of the people in it. So for a long-term relationship, I think the monogamous relationship is the way to go. I've got nothing. People want recreational relationships, friends with benefits, fine, right? There's only a certain amount of depth you can get with that, right? There's only a certain amount of yourself you can expose in that kind of situation, right? So it would, to my mind, have its limitations. So it depends on what you want, right? Right? And if we want to use relationship for spiritual awakening as a sadhana, right? As meeting our human needs, but not getting in the way of our spiritual development, then I think monogamy is the only way to go. I think it's the only one that'll do it. But I could be wrong on that, and I don't want to put it out there as that this is an absolute spiritual truth any more than I'd say, no, you have to give up all relationships and be by yourself. I wouldn't lay it out for anybody as a rule, just my idea about it. But certainly don't do anything that you and your body aren't saying 100% yes to. Don't do that, right? That is self-demeaning. And while there may be some advantages to it, I think in this day and age, for the most part, that's there because people are afraid of getting stuck in a relationship. They're afraid of it being drab. They're afraid of intimacy. And that is a perfect place to hide. Is there a way it could be used that wouldn't be a place to hide? I don't know. But trust, if your body says no, don't do it. Simple as that. Andrea, hugs from Brazil. Hi, Andrea. Good to see you. Dale. Hello, Dale in Massachusetts. There's Steffi. Namaste from Frankfurt, Germany. Beautiful place, Frankfurt. Facebook user. Hey, GP. What is the inner child? How can I get in touch with it, connect with it? Why is it good to know it? And what are the benefits of doing that? Well, now there's a thorough question. You covered all the bases. Well, the inner child, was it John Bradshaw? Is that the guy who read the book, who kind of popularized that idea and developed a therapeutic process and a vocabulary around giving expression to something that can be expressed in a whole lot of different ways. That's just one metaphor you could use for it. I mean, I don't use that term inner child, but I'm referring to the same thing that John Bradshaw is when I'm talking about the parts of us that get stuck, right? You're this child and you want to express yourself, but you can't, right? The environment just isn't friendly to you being you, right? And that creates a disruption, an energetic disruption, an emotional disruption. and causes us to suppress aspects of ourselves. And those aspects of ourselves can come out later as infantile behavior. And what it boils down to is the essence of the inner child is your original innocence, just a pure, unpretentious, authentic you that couldn't express itself, right? And therefore, it's kind of like hiding in the basement. It was actually locked in the basement. It's just kind of sitting in there, right? Is it a child? Not necessarily. It's not like there's this little a kid in there. Although oftentimes, when I've worked with people with inner reconciliation and tapping, it can come up as a very young energy. It can be felt in the body as a very young energy, both in its pain and in its playfulness, right? And what we're really doing is we're reintegrating into the wholeness of us aspects of us that were disallowed. And so the metaphor of the inner child is a way of approaching that works. You can also use other archetypes, and there's a variety of ways to do it. They have a different language for it in like family constellation therapy and the like. You know, if for me, it is they're very natural innocence, right? You know, the characteristic of the child is just this pure innocence, playfulness, right? There's just nothing affected about them, right? They're 100% themselves. And that original innocence is still there in you. It was suppressed. It was bent out of shape. It was stuck in the basement. It wasn't allowed to be out. But nothing can kill it. Nothing can get rid of it. And so getting access back to that is really liberating your power, because that's what it is, right? It's creative. It's your creative impulse, right? It's your capacity for self-validation. It's your playfulness. It's your fun. It's your sensuality, pleasure. It's the capacity to simply know what you want and be okay with getting it. Be able to say yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no. These can all be summed up using that metaphor. How do you get in touch with it? You have to make it safe. It is that simple. This is the heart and soul of everything I teach in inner reconciliation, is that you have to make the inner environment that you didn't have that caused that child to be stuck down in the basement in the first place. The environment wasn't safe for it, right? And we come along later with our sophisticated minds, psychologically, self-help, personal development, success strategies and the like. And we basically try to force ourselves into being something else. In other words, we use self-help and all these techniques to fix ourselves, right? Because there's something wrong with you, you need to change, which is exactly what happened to the child in the first place. It's exactly what caused it to have to go into the basement. It's exactly what the nervous system learned to defend itself against, which is why none of those techniques work. Because the nervous system already knows how to defend itself perfectly against whatever you can throw at it. The very fact that you want to, I need to improve this, is a trigger to the nervous system. And here we go again, and it digs in its heels. But what happens when you say, you don't have to prove anything? I love you just the way you're. Absolutely. Thank you for everything you've been doing. You've been protecting me. Yeah, it wasn't easy, right? We had to hack off big parts of ourselves to keep ourselves safe. Thank you for doing that. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. You're the best thing. I love you. What happens to that? There's no defense for that. If somebody comes up and rails and goes, it's terrible, you did a horrible job, you got to do this better, you got to try harder. You feel like this. Somebody else comes up and says, wow, you're really good. Thank you. You're really giving it your all. Let's work together on something. You're going to go, yeah, I'm in. Right? This is it. This is inner reconciliation. You are creating an inner environment in which it's safe to be you. And what happens when it's safe to be you? Defenses come down, and all the energy that was defending against the world now goes into expressing yourself to the world unashamedly in all your beauty and innocence. So, and what's the benefits of doing that? How about total freedom? How about happiness, right? Contentment, that creative capacity, just that feeling of freedom of self-expression. Imagine what it would be like for the whale to be taken out of the swimming pool and put back in the ocean. That's what the benefit is. Thank you, Facebook user. Sean. Hey, Sean. Maybe a weird question. Oh, I don't take weird questions. No, I give weird answers. Yeah. But if suffering is ultimately an illusion created by resistance to the now by the ego, then is the experience of happiness by the body's perception an illusion as well? Well, there's got to be something that isn't an illusion, right? Suffering, okay, if we don't attach an expectation to this moment, that is, we have no resistance to this moment the way it is, I will not have any artificial feelings about this moment. Whatever I'm feeling will be 100% authentic, genuine, innocent, and a direct reflection of what is happening in the moment, right? That's not an illusion, is it? Right? That is experience. That's happiness. When I say happiness, I'm not referring to the emotional high we get, right? I get something new or something good happens or you do something fun, right? That's an emotional high. It's experiential. It's great. Nothing wrong with it, right? If I cling to that, I'm going to try to push other things away, which is going to, create tension and suffering. And that happiness will dissolve very quickly into suffering because I'm trying to hold on to something you can't hold on to. Okay? But if I'm not holding on to anything and I'm fully present in this moment and whatever I'm feeling is okay, I have no resistance to anything, what do you have? Equanimity, contentment. That's real happiness. And if you take away everything that's artificial, what's left is not an illusion, is it? You may see the mirage in the desert, but the desert's there. Take away the mirage, the desert's still there, right? And your experiencing of it is still there. Remember, the illusion is a misinterpretation of experience. You're not seeing things as they actually are. But in order for there even to be an illusion, there has to be something there that isn't an illusion. There's got to be an actual point of cognition, something real, something that is. Even if the entire thing it's experienced is a total delusion, a total hallucination, there must be something there real. Take away all the rest, and whatever that real thing is, it will not just be blank, it will be felt. It will be known and it will be felt. Sat Chit Ananda, being, consciousness, bliss. Existing, knowing I exist, feeling I exist. That is existence. That is the sum total of it. So yes, the happiness that is derived, say, some people are happy because they beat somebody, right? I got their money, right? That's an illusion. That's an emotional state created by a particular belief system. It fulfilled itself and gave rise to that emotion, right? But that emotion wasn't real. That wasn't real happiness, right? It was believed to be caused because I got something, but it was only the belief that if I got this, then I will be happy. And so now you have this reactive thing going on. That's not happiness, right? The truth of the matter is You can't ever be happy at the expense of somebody else. It's not possible. But the deepest thing to remember is when you take away everything that is conditional, be it sadness or happiness, right, you will be left with whatever is actually always there. Take away everything that's conditional, you'll have what's unconditional. Take away everything that's coming and going, you will have what isn't coming and going. That is true happiness, right? And it is incapable of suffering. But it's not an emotional up and down. We can't measure it the way we normally measure happiness in contrast to misery, right? Right? That's on that. It's really a different word: contentment, equanimity, peace, stillness, ananda. Because it is simply the ground of being that is beyond all the feeling, but it is totally at peace. There are no disruptions in it. Right? It's the best I can describe it. Yeah. Thank you, Sean. Remy. Hi, Remy. Hi, D. I finally recognized, hi, GP. I finally recognized the conclusion you came to when we talked about business. I realized that I have to be a person I haven't built myself to be. I have to leave the car for the boat now. I'm not so sure I want to do it. Is there a way to be a spiritual person who's more faith and ritual based than the scientific thinking ego side of business? Of course there is, my friend. Of course. Matter of fact, just by asking the question, indicating a desire to do so, has already fulfilled the request, right? Yes, it is a much deeper place to get to realize that we really want to walk more by faith and by spiritual insight than by just, following all the rules of business and making something happen. We can see what's happened to that, and it's crumbling. And several groups and organizations that I myself are part of that are really trying very hard to bring love and spirituality and reconciliation into the workplace, because it's become such a miserable place for everybody. It is no longer serving humanity's needs, and people at all levels of management in companies recognize it, right? That way doesn't work anymore. Never really did, except to make money. But it doesn't work for human beings. There's nothing humane about it. So your desire to live and to live more by faith, right? And faith in what? Well, faith in the ultimate goodness of life, the ultimate benevolence of the universe, the ultimate power of truth over falsity, the power of love over hatred and indifference. And you live that by emulating it in your life, right? You return goodness for condemnation, blessing for cursing, right? You live it, right? Everything that Christ said to do it. Don't be a Christian. Actually follow what Christ had to say and do it. Love your enemies, right? Bless those that curse you. Blessed are the meek. They will inherit the earth. And you'll find whatever particular scientific or strategic skill you need to acquire along the way, it'll come. But it will come as a result of your spiritual transcendency. And it will be virtually effortless. Thank you, Remy. Beautiful. Hi, Sifu. Hi, Penny. Andrew, does thought create the thinker? The thinker is a thought, isn't it? When we use the word thinker, you've got to conceptualize. You've got a concept of somebody thinking, right? And that's a concept, which is a thought, right? Really look for yourself. Don't take my word for it. You'll see the flow of thoughts. You will not find the thinker of the thoughts. Right? The thinker of the thoughts is itself a thought, that is trying to attribute the process of thinking to consciousness, in which that process is happening, is being witnessed. But there's no thinker, there's no act of will or volition on consciousness's part. Just like the ocean isn't consciously making waves. It is just the natural consequence of it being the ocean, right? And so the wave is the ocean, right? They are all it's one stupendous whole. So thinking happens because there is consciousness, but it is not an act of will. So there is no thinker. There is no mind. Mind is simply the word we give to thoughts, right? So it itself is another thought. Here's one for you. Thought is a thought. It's a conceptualization. What is it? The direct experience of it is just that. Right? So even thought is a thought. So really look. There's a very personal, identified sense that says, well, I must be the thinker because I'm seeing the thoughts. No, it doesn't have to be that way. Look really closely. See if you can find the thinker. You can find the thoughts, the flow of thoughts, the cascading of thoughts, the patterns of thoughts. But you cannot find the thinker for real. You can find the consciousness. You can be aware of a consciousness in which the thoughts appear, because obviously without consciousness, there could be no thoughts, right? They require, right? But just like in between my words when I'm speaking sometimes, and I pause, you're not having a thought, you're listening, right? Consciousness can exist quite nicely without thought. The opposite is not true, right? So there's no thinker. The thinker is simply another thought, right? Thoughts happen, they cascade, and then another thought comes up and says, I thought that. Which is just another thought arising out of exactly the same place. The thought of I is the subtle one. It's the tricky one. Because we mistake that I for the consciousness that is aware of it. But that I is not referring to consciousness. It's referring to a conception, an imaginary person that is supposedly thinking these thoughts. That person doesn't exist. So does thought create the thinker? Creates only an idea of a thinker. It can't create a thinker. There is no thinker, only the thought of one. Is that answered for you, Andrew? Oh, this must be what Anne was referring to, because you guys had an inner reconciliation. Penny saying, thank you much, Audrey and Ava, for insightful practice meeting today. Penny is hosting some inner reconciliation kind of roundtables, groups, where people can get together just discussing what it is they know about it prior to the class that's coming up. I think maybe that's what Anne was talking about. I guess she didn't have the thing for it. This is being done separately from me. I'm not emailing about it. Penny's taking care of that all herself. I've got enough to do. I can't keep track of all of them. Dale, I'm pained by my grandmother's confusion and fear around her dementia, which has been magnifying recently, even more than it has been over the past 4 years. Physically fit, mentally anguished. I wish she could understand some of this, but she can't even remember how to change channels on the TV from second to second. Yes, my friend, wow. Yes. Well, most important thing is for you to just continue to hold her in your heart, hold her in love, and don't let yourself, don't you turn her current experience into a problem, because it isn't, right? Remember, the reality of her cannot be touched. That's a fact, right? And the human experience goes through all sorts of different things, right? All sorts of things. Even just finding yourself being forgetful, or something you used to be able to do, you can't do anymore. Right? We all go through these kinds of things, and everyone has the capacity. The voice of truth speaks to everyone. There's no such thing as somebody who would be in such a state that the voice of truth cannot reach them. That is simply impossible, which means that you can simply be present with her. You can grieve her passing for yourself, right? Because she's not going to be there in the same capacity anymore, right? Do what you need, and then really let her go. Let her go into the hands of her own destiny, and her destiny is to wake up. It is to wake up, and she will, and nothing can stop that from happening. Weird as it may seem, even this is contributing to that. Even this is breaking down the walls of the mind. Thank you, my friend. Namaste, beloved ones, or one. Hi there, Facebook user. Merck, So is enlightenment only the pinnacle of all beliefs and lack? Something like the last carrot to chase before we see what the game is all about? Or is it simply the end of becoming? It's both. Because when the mind gets a hold of an idea of enlightenment, and believe me, the very fact that even the idea of enlightenment gets your attention is an indication of enlightenment, right? This is the fact, right? Really grasp that. The very fact that the idea pops up and you were drawn to it, there's an interest in it, right, is in fact the enlightenment, right? It is already in progress. When you turn to your enlightenment, already in progress, right? Now, when that first happens, it's also, for most, it doesn't happen as such an explosion that it blows everything else away. Almost never happens, actually. So what does happen is our interest, our attention starts heading in that direction. But the mind, being conditioned the way it is, tries to interpret that within the context that it knows. So it starts making up new stuff. And so it goes, enlightenment. Oh, so it's not really the great success that I want. I want to be enlightened. And now it turns it into the ultimate carrot. In other words, it has conceptualized it into a goal, which is now just redirecting the mind energy in a different direction, but with the same intention: to achieve, to get. There's something I can get. The idea of it already being you, right? No. Yeah. Oh yeah, I get that. All right. So I'm going to strive for it, on and on. And this is just the nature of the mind. And little by little, we see through that. Right? But that's not what it is, right? That there is no reward. There's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. In fact, there's no rainbow, right? That this is an inner realization. And so attention turns more and more and more towards what is. And then even the word enlightenment becomes unimportant, right? In fact, I'll do exercises where actually put that aside. So does Muji in the invitation. Even the desire for enlightenment, just put it aside and be totally empty. Right? Anything that projects anything into the future, right? Put it aside. Even the desire for enlightenment, the highest aspiration a human being can have. Okay? So it is the end of becoming, but as that unfolds to us, it will be experienced first as the mind kind of appropriating non-dual language, but keeping its basic point of view and its basic motivation. But as it deepens and our sincerity grows, that begins to fall away, and more attention just is is striving to focus on what simply is. How do I really empty myself? Oh, what a powerful question. Oh, I want to be enlightened. Well, okay. Let's just put even that aside. What's left? If even the desire for enlightenment isn't there, what's left? I'm still here. Okay. That's something. My past, my memories, even this, all the unhealed traumas I have, I just put them aside for a second. It doesn't matter whether they're healed or not. Just be right here, right now. I'm still here. All my ambitions, all my self-concepts. I'm still here. What's still here? Now you're there. That's the threshold. That's the place. What is still here? Right? And that's what is, isn't it? Is you've removed everything else. You've removed everything that isn't or transient or impermanent, that was or could be. You've removed all the thoughts, ideas, and ambitions, and you're still here. As what? As what? Now, the question, who am I, is asked in a very different way, isn't it? It's not to get anything. What's there to get? I'm already here. I've been here the whole time. Right? Even a very subtle one, and that is, what's next? What's this going to do? Even put that aside. No next. You're done. That's it. Now you can feel how disorienting that is for the mind, because there's no place there for the mind. There's no place for it to stick a stake in the ground. It's like it has no room to move there. It's pure emptiness, and you are still there. As what? It's nothing to do with the pursuing of enlightenment, does it? That's just another nice thought. Okay, I'm not doing that's gone. I'm still here. Thanks, Mark. Hope that helps. Sue in South Africa. Hello, Sue. Brooke. Hello, Brooke. Looks like a new name. I just saw Francis King quoting from Crosby, Stills and Nash. What a great song, too. Teach your children well. Oh, what a great song. Brooke, what determines our physical appearance? Is our physical appearance determined by our beliefs, genetics? If it's determined by our beliefs, is it possible to change our physical appearance? You know, it's really fascinating. People who have, people who are studied who have real multiple personality disorder, right, which is so severe that a personality, they become so fragmented. We're all fragmented. We're all multiple personalities. These are so fragmented that when one comes up, it literally takes over everything and knows nothing about the others. It becomes this and then disappears and somebody else takes it, and there's no memory of it, right? In those conditions, they literally change. Eye color has changed. I actually saw this. A friend of mine a long time ago who was dating a man, and she found out later that he had. It was kind of weird. It was very charming and nice, and then this other guy showed up, and it was him. He was so different, right? She eventually realized what was going on and got out of it. But she showed me 2 pictures of the guy. You would not believe they were the same guy. One guy was like good shape. He was handsome. Other guy was like homely. He had a pot belly. It was like, what? I mean, it was that dramatic, right? Now, so yes, we really do not understand the relationship between mind and body, between thought and the expression of thought. To me, there is nothing but the expression of the underlying energy. The body is not a physical thing. The genetics is an idea. Even in even in the world of neuroplasticity and in the studies done on trauma, the DNA is not a determinant. You could think of it as the sum of all possibilities. But what makes something happen and something not happen is completely determined on the environment, and how that environment is sustained over time. So that if I am open and free, the likelihood of me being sick is dramatically less. Even if all of the genetic markers are there, they are not activated because of the inner state of the individual. And if they are there, and a particular state exists, like anxiety or trauma, they do get activated. This is not pseudoscience. This is the real stuff, the real studies. This is documented. It's ignored by most medical schools, which are still very much reductionist in nature and driven a lot by the drug companies. So, but here's what I would caution you about. Because some people think, okay, I want to change myself. I want to change my appearance to have better physical appearance, right? A natural desire for us all. But if that's the desire, you're going to end up being in a fight with yourself. What I say is, forget whether you're doing that and focus your attention on the inner state of harmony, peace, love, and beauty. That is the most beautiful and most appealing. And eventually that will seep out and manifest itself in the physical form. Even sometimes the physical form doesn't change that much, but it emanates, it radiates a glow about it. I remember once doing an EFT session. I was doing EFT for combat veterans with severe PTSD. Very successful. It was really helpful to them. And I had one little open space where there was nobody there. I spent a weekend, I just one guy after another. And so one of the staff psychologists wanted to come in and experience EFT. So she came in. She was very tight, right? Very straight-laced, right? Nice woman, right? And just kind of sitting there. And so we started tapping together. I don't even remember what the subject was about, but there was just, something in her was really holding on, was, distant. Even though she was a therapist, she was distant. There was this wall. And as we were just tapping through that, the wall started to come down. And her whole disposition shifted. Her whole body relaxed. Everything started to come down. And right before my eyes, this beauty emerged. I mean, she was literally physically beautiful. Whereas before it was this straight-laced little thing. All of a sudden there was this goddess sitting in front of me. I'm going, whoa, what just happened? It was that dramatic right in front of my eyes. So I know this stuff is for real. And I know the kind of transformation that takes place, but I wasn't trying to bring out, the goddess in this woman, right? I was just helping her break down the inner walls. And when the inner walls came down, this other energy just got released, and was palpable, was noticeable. So, that's the long answer, right? For the short answer being, yeah, it is. But don't ever make the intention. Never make your intention the shift, the thing out here, the manifestation. It's putting the cart before the horse. It's trying to build a mountain without making the tectonic plagues that are going to push it up. You've got to go to where the source is, and don't pay any attention about how it manifests. If we think there's a certain way we want it to manifest, we will unconsciously be trying to manipulate the process. It won't be true. Therefore, it won't be felt as safe, and the nervous system will resist it. And you won't get anywhere, right? Let go of everything you think you wanted, and instead make the entire ambition to know yourself as you really are. And that will take care of the rest. Very good. Jay, last night my wife took our oldest son outside and spent a little bit of time. My mom had to go to bed as she had to bring him inside so she could bring the baby and our oldest to bed and get the bedtime routine going. After coming back inside a couple of minutes after he started crying uncontrollably, she calls me at work and I asked her to try some redirection, and she started reading some books to him, and slowly he started calming down and he starts back again. When do we just let it be? I want to comfort and make him happy, but sometimes I can't do anything or don't know what to do. Probably being unconscious if I let him do whatever. Well, just know that sometimes you're simply just going to fail, right? But you can love, right? Don't, if you look at other primates in the wild and human beings as hunter-gatherers, that child never got set down. You look at primates, monkeys and chimpanzees or so, that kid is glued to mom, right? Mom doesn't let it sit there and cry. I mean, it's so weird that we humans say, oh no, if they cry, just let them cry. No, don't do that, right? Don't force them into a routine. Be with them, right? They need constant reassurance that you are there. You are their life. You are their safety, right? And that can be shared amongst grandparents. Like, I know, because I do it. But that's really, and sometimes there's nothing you can do except sit there and hold them, right? And if you set them down, they start crying, pick them back up again, right? You're not spoiling them, believe me. You are training them that when they need something, it's going to come, right? That they can depend upon the world, the universe, to take care of them. That's the message you're giving them. So don't listen to the people saying you're spoiling them, or you're just learning. No, nonsense, right? If they lay there feeling they need something, they don't get it, they're learning that the world doesn't take care of them. That's the message. So don't do that, right? Pick them up, hold them. My first son was born because the relationship with it was just horrible. It was horrible from the get-go, and it was reflected in him, and he cried all the time. There were times where I literally walked the floor 4 hours. I couldn't even sit down. And of course, she was no help. I was doing it all on my own. I would sit down in the rocking chair. 10 minutes, he'd start crying again. I mean, I just exhausted myself, right? But I said I couldn't just let him cry. And I didn't know any better, right? I didn't know any. If somebody told me, just let him cry, I might have, but I'm sure glad I didn't. So anyway, there we go. Nazarene, hi G. Would you ever consider visiting Ireland? I know there are many people who love to hear you teach in person. I am actually. I'm right now beginning to plan my trip to Europe, probably December, January timeframe, when my lease is up here and my car gets returned and my expenses drop way back down. Looking to find some place that's centrally located to wander from. I have several. I mean, I've got. It's wonderful. I have students all over the place, so it shouldn't be that difficult to do. I've got somebody who's already looking to start setting up events for me in London, a place called the Alternatives, I guess, for talks and workshops, some interviews and the like. And so, yeah, I had thought about Ireland as well. I'd love to go back to where I came from. Well, I didn't come from. My ancestors did. But what I need is people to help me organize some groups and the like. I have to charge enough for these things that I can pay for the trip. I can keep myself going and pay all the expenses and the like. But I won't be charging an arm and a leg. So especially if you can put on something in somebody's house, so we don't have to rent a venue and stuff like that. So anybody in any of these places who can help just organize so we can get a group together, I'll come, right? Yeah, for absolute sure. That's my intention, is to simply wander around Europe, giving talks and workshops and the like. And wherever I happen to be is where weekly satsang is going to take place, and whatever time zone I happens to be in, that's I will be accommodating everybody as best I can. So it looks like, well, some of Europe is open, right? It's opening up. 2022 is opening up in terms of the whole COVID thing. Places, I think. So I think next year that possibility is going to be quite real, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. I wanted to go there for quite a while, since the last time I was there, which was 2016. Yeah, 5 years ago. 5 years ago is the last time I was there. So, hey, Peter, good to see you. Good to see you. There's Anja in Germany. Oh, another one I have in Germany. I got many people in Germany. So great, so great. I think that's my first stop, actually. Will be Germany. In fact, I know it is. Yeah, that's the place. That's where I'm going to be starting and branching out from. Merck, have you heard about newer therapy modalities like IPF? And IFS, internal. I've heard of. I hadn't heard of ideal parent figure, but I have heard of the internal family systems. Yeah, I think Gabor Mate speaks of it. He finds it to be very helpful. It sounds like a step in the right direction for psychology to me. No experience though. It is. All of it is. The risk of sounding like I'm tooting my own horn, when I hear somebody like Gabor Mate speaking, it's like, yes. That experience I had 50 years ago, which just kind of compounded and developed over time, revealed exactly that. Now, for me, it came through grace. I don't have any credentials. I studied stuff because I wanted to learn it. Never went to school for it. But when you say it's in the right direction, it absolutely is, because it's moving out of trying to manipulate people into getting better, into an acknowledgement of what happened. I mean, it wasn't all that long ago that there was no acknowledgement of your conditioning. It was just you. Our legal system is based on that. Our legal system and economic system is based on, no, it's all your choice. Right? And therefore you deserve, that's your choice, bad choice, you get punished. The idea that it's not really, right? That there's this incredibly complex thing going on and we're not really choosing. Boy, it just, it breaks the entire system to pieces. But that's exactly what's happening, right? It doesn't make us irresponsible. I mean, we still have to deal with what we have to deal with, right? Obviously. But it completely shifts it, one from just this personal responsibility and I have to fix myself, to the discovery of an inherent innocence that hasn't been touched by this, and you're not the problem, but the identification with conditioning is. The conditioning can get really messed up, but once it's seen as conditioning, it can be dismantled and thus free you to be who you've always been, right? Which is to find the truth of yourself, which has never been touched by it. So everything that I'm seeing in these new modalities, including Gabor Mate's compassionate inquiry, right? is completely, what I see is that the spiritual self-inquiry, the depth of the spiritual reality is permeating and appearing in all of these forms, leavening them, transforming them, until eventually it's going to explode and create a whole new world. It is signs that there's much more going on than just the chaos and nonsense we see going on in the world. There's an underlying energy that is forcing all this nasty stuff to the surface because its days are numbered. Let's see. Boy, not that many left. Okay. Just had a call and one of my best friends might have died. Jeez. Okay, time to sit with this and not run away. Neither inside nor outside. Waiting for info, but this time I won't run from what is, but feel it with no resistance. Thank you for your guidance, beloved G. Thank you. Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. Yes. The willingness to be with life as it is. This is true happiness, right? Including the grief, right? And normally we want to run away. We don't. We want to make stuff up, but we don't have to. And when we don't, we discover exactly how powerful we really are. Thank you, Jonas. Francis, there are no objects. How can there be a body? The body isn't an object. Right? There's not a concrete reality of an object, right? Obviously this is an object, right? It's a form. But and we deal with objects all the time. We're dealing with forms all the time, right? But what is the form? If we think of it as a concrete thing with inherent characteristics, we've turned it into a fixed object. That isn't real, right? There's no fixed object anywhere. This body isn't a fixed object. It's constantly changing. This is constantly changing, right? To this level of perception, it feels like it has a stable form, but it's changing. And if it sits there long enough, it'll deteriorate like anything else. Well, because that's what it is. It's always in the cycle of a process. And no matter how thinly you time slice that process, you won't find an object. You will find a becoming, but never a being in that, right? The being is always in that which is witnessing, and that's not an object. Who you are is not an object. That which is not an object manifests itself as forms. And I'm just making a distinction here between the appearance of a form and an object, right? Because you could use those interchangeably. This is an object, right? A thought is an object, right? It only matters is if we impute to it inherent characteristics, right? That this is what it is, right? When in fact, we're only perceiving a part of it. We never see the entire thing. We're only dealing with our own perception of it, which is only from one particular point of view. And our own perception itself is engaged in the object. Where does my perception of the object and the object end and the object begin, right? The answer is it's a continuum. There's neither, right? They're one. The perceiving and the perceived are one. So the body exists as an experience, but not as a reality. We call this the body. But what are you actually experiencing when you talk about the body? Look at your experience. Notice the body is a concept. And you close your eyes, oh, the body, yeah, and your arms and legs and all that sort of stuff. But really look at your own direct experience, and what you experience is sensation. This flow of what we call sensation. I attribute the sensation. The origin of that sensation is a body. And so I imagine that there's an object out there that is generating sensations. That's not your experience. Your experience is only the sensations. And if you meditate long enough just on the sensations themselves and notice that body is a concept, the body will fall away. And you'll find yourself just experiencing sensation itself, in which case sensation falls away and you're living in pure perception. That the perceived and the perceiving and what is perceived and the perceiving are not two, they're one. The knowing and the known are one. The being of a thing and the knowing of the thing are the same. I'll leave it at that. Yes, G, thank you. My thoughts are so clever. I believe they crowded when they yelled effort. Yeah, I believe the crowd when they yelled effort, 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 ding, 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 get him, get him, get him. Yes, says Andrew, thanks. You're welcome. Oh, God's got a question. It's always great having God at Satsang. I'm a 38-year-old male, depressed, addicted to weed, jobless, frustrated, not exercising, loser, who never made it in life. Question: I want to feel like Jason Bourne 24/7. How? I bet Jason Bourne is in constant Atman consciousness 24/7. Now, remember Jason Bourne. Remember Jason Bourne didn't exist. He was miserable. He had no self. There was no self there. He was completely. Everything he had to do was dictated to him. Right. The whole movie series was about somebody coming into himself. Right. Because he wasn't himself. It's a useful metaphor for all of us. Of course, the hero thing. He's going to beat people up and all that. Because he's got to do that. Right. Yeah, got to do that. So the first thing to do is to stop referring to yourself as a 38-year-old male, depressed, addicted to weed, and all that sort of stuff. These are all labels you put on yourself, right? At the heart of it is an emotional trauma you experienced as a child. I can guarantee you, everything you're experiencing is the result of the way you were treated in childhood that completely shut down your ability to know your own feelings, to know what you love, to know what you care about, to feel animated and alive. But they're not dead. That you that does know what it wants is not dead. And at this point, the only way it has of expressing itself is that it can identify this Jason Bourne character as a life that feels it does have meaning. But what is in you that is looking at that and wanting to reach for that is the real you that got suppressed and in its place got layered over with all this other stuff, addictions and frustrations and the whole of it. It's not your fault. You're not to blame for this. This happened to you, and the trauma was severe enough that the only way you could deal with it, the only way your nervous system could deal with it and keep you alive was to shut all this stuff down. It was a strategy, and it was a strategy that worked at the time. It was an adaptation, right? The organism had to make an adaptation to an environment that was hostile to it. And so and it made a successful adaptation because all it was trying to do was survive. And it did. But that adaptation that successfully kept you alive then is successfully inhibiting that life now. It is keeping you from being that. Note that desire to the Jason Bourne figure is something inside of you that's really calling you back to you. That Jason Bourne figure is in you, the real you, free, virile, strong, with conviction, with confidence, right? That's right. That's the real you, right? It's in there. It's covered over. We want to just pull off everything that isn't you, and you won't have to become that. You'll find that you already are. But my dear friend, it's not your fault, right? This is the way back. I'm showing you the way back, right? Let go of all these labels you put on yourself, right? All they do is try to blame you for what was not your fault or not your doing. So throw all of those away. Don't think of yourself in those terms. And instead, just be willing to be present for a while with what you're feeling. I mean, addiction is simply to not feel. I don't want to feel this, right? And if I'm on weed, then I'm not feeling that. That's all it is, right? It's not even a problem. It's a solution, but it's a temporary solution. It's one that doesn't give you a long-term result. Depression is that. Depression is the nervous system. It's completely shut down. It doesn't want you to feel because it was dangerous to feel at one time. So trust me, it's not dangerous to feel anymore, right? Because all the elements that were going to condemn you for what you felt and express to the world aren't there anymore, right? So now it's just you. So can you be willing to give a little time just for you? To just What am I feeling right now? Before you pick up that weed and smoke it, just sit with yourself for a while. What is it that I don't want to feel right now? Right? That I really want to grab for that. Right? And then let yourself be with that feeling, however uncomfortable it is, for some amount of time. Set a clock, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, right? And then at the end of that, if you still feel like having the weed, have it, right? I'm no condemner of any of that stuff. You'll also might find EFT. I've got a bunch of free EFT videos. I do some courses on it as well. It can be very helpful for that as well. But don't set your objective to be free from weed and not be. Don't define your objective for life in terms of all the stuff you want to get rid of. Define it in terms of the direct and deepest desire. I want to find myself. I want to recover that enthusiasm for life that I had as a child, even though I barely remember it. I see other children, they have it. Okay, I was one of them once. I must have had that at one time. I want to recover that. Something tells me it's not completely gone. That becomes the motivation, and it will clear away the rest. Beautiful. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for you. The unmanifest. Oh boy. All these questions at the end. It's already two and a half hours. Amazing satsang today, G. Thank you. Alum, you're welcome. Please confirm if you agree. Normies live as personal identity 24/7. Stream enterer. Lives as personal identity but broke out of the dream once and can do it again. Arhat lives as natural self but still has personal identities floating around. Buddha lives as natural self and purified of any personal identities. Please confirm if you agree. Oh, they're in here again. I got it. Generally, first off, you don't have to be really specific about each, the once returner and the no returner. Buddha was very good and adept at making teachings happen for people in very specific ways at very specific times, right? If you are aware that it is a dream, and your desire is to be free of the dream, you've entered the path. You are on the road, right? How many returns you need? You won't need many, right? You can do it in one life, right? So that makes you a non-returner or a once returner, right? But even that is part of the dream. The Arhat seeks enlightenment to be free of all of that. And the Arhat, in realizing that, they want to simply enter into nirvana. In contradistinction, that is the hero of the Vinayana, the lesser vehicle. The greater vehicle, the Mahayana, the hero is the Bodhisattva, who seeks enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. It's even beyond my own desire for me. It's transcended that. It has gone beyond all personal desire. And it is of the bodhisattvas that the Buddhas are born. The final step in the path of the bodhisattva is Buddhahood. Buddha himself said he spent 500 lives as a bodhisattva in the service of Buddhism, right? Of course, he uses these words. He wasn't pointing to actual numbers, right? He was trying to drive home the point that lose yourself, even the desire for enlightenment, lose that to the desire to know yourself as you are and know everyone else as they are simultaneously. This is what Christ meant when he said, love your neighbor as yourself. Right? And what Buddha meant when he said a very unusual thing, he said, when I attained Anatura Samyak Sambodhi, that is the great unparalleled enlightenment, simultaneously all beings attained the great unparalleled enlightenment. It was a recognition of the enlightened one, which is what Buddha means. Not one who is enlightened, but the enlightened one. It was a recognition of this pure oneness. So what nirvana wasn't an escape. It was nirvana and samsara are simply two sides of the same thing, and the ultimate is transcendent of all of us. That's Buddhahood. How's that on Manifest? Thank you for that question. Oh, how many you got here? So just to add to that on Manifest, wherever you are, don't try to make it too theoretical and categorize yourself. Just where are you? A certain sense of awakening, a certain sense of still having a personal identity. You don't need to get rid of the personal identity, right? It's not like this, it all goes away and there's nothing left, right? And nobody's there and all of that sort of thing. It's there. It's just seen as there, right? Like everything else, it's just another phenomena happening, but you're not identified with it any longer. Just make it like that, so that you don't try to put yourself into a category, but you see yourself as unique, right? In your experience being unique. And all of these things kind of just give you a range to help you on the path. And nothing more. Ava, thank you. You're welcome, Ava. Tom, G, do you have any broad advice for post-awakening? This is my last question for today. How to help the process of our habitual sense of control dissolving. Thank you. I designed inner reconciliation to be both pre-awakening practice to get you there and a post-awakening practice, what to do afterwards. They're the same thing. Allowing, inviting, and integrating. This is what's happening. To allow, right? People can have an enormous awakening and still be in conflict with their nervous system, with their conditioning, right? And now they think somehow the idea is I got to get rid of all of this, right? Which creates more conflict, right? And that's a big mistake, right? So the very kind of process that allows you to be with your feelings that lead up to the point where you can have a deep insight into your true nature, a deep enlightenment, is exactly the same process that allows that insight to settle in, to take root, and to integrate itself into the whole rest of your system, to actually colonize until the whole nervous system is now conforming itself to the true sense of identity, the true sense of who you are that is now emerged and making itself known. So it's inner reconciliation. That's what I could say. That's why I designed it. that's the whole point of it is to free you from all the concepts of what's supposed to be going on, what you're supposed to be doing, and how it's supposed to look, so you don't get caught in any of the traps that you can, that everyone very well could, unless that enlightenment experience was the final one, the ultimate, in which case there's no more being caught. So thank you for that question, Tom. I hope my more brief answer was adequate. That's it for today, folks. Lovely. Thank you all for coming. Those of you who are interested, let me put it up here one more time. This is the intensive I'm going to be doing about inner reconciliation, teaching the entire process, boiling down to basically inviting or allowing, inquiring, learning how to actually work with and reconcile with with all the different energies within us, and then finally how it integrates itself and really does take over every aspect of your life, leading up to an awakening and after the awakening, and series of them as well, until that final curtain does drop. So I hope some of you will join me there. So in the meantime, I love you all. Namaste.